How y'all doing? For this book review, I'm going to go over a fantasy classic, Lord Dunsany's The King of Elfland's Daughter. You may be not familiar with Lord Dunsany or read too much of his work, but interesting enough, he's a writer that influences many creators we are into. And I'll explain that later in the video. So let's take a look at the book and what we have here as a story. Okay, so we begin with the Lord of Earl calling his son forth, whose name is Alveric, and the Lord of Earl tells him, I want you to go over to cross the borders into the land of Elfland and bring back the King of Elfland's daughter for you to marry. Because what happened is that the king, along with talking with the parliament, that they want their land to be ruled by a magic lord to make their land stand out, and as unique among other places in the lands that we know, as the book continuously calls it. Okay, so Alveric goes on his quest. Before he does, he meets up with a witch to to forge him an enchanted sword that will be useful for him as he crosses into Elfland and facing the obstacles there. And on he goes across, and on his journey he does cross into Elfland, and he comes to a couple of obstacles, mainly a bunch of trees that try to attack him, in addition to the fact of the King of Elfland's knights that protects his daughter. He finds her, and after fighting off the knights, they escape. She doesn't, by the way, she's not kidnapped. She freely goes with him, afraid of the father's wrath and everything. And they cross back into the human world. Now, eventually they will, but when they get there, they realize that time is different between Elfland and the world of men, and so it's been 10 years when he crosses back. And has passed. His father has died, so now he's the new Earl. So, and he quickly marries the King of Elfland's daughter. Her name's Lirazel, and eventually have a kid named Orion. So as time passes, Lirazel, not from our world, she has a hard time adjusting. Time is different here, and she has a hard time getting used to that. She's not used to the ways of how people live and what we take for granted. It's just strange, and it's causing a little bit of distress despite all efforts of everything. Their son Orion eventually grows up to enjoy nature and hunting in particular. While all this was going down, the King of Elfland sends a troll with a letter that is inscribed with a magic enchantment for her to read. And we follow the troll for a little bit and into our world, and he gives her, the letter. She doesn't read it at first, but becomes complacent enough she eventually does. And when she does, the enchantment takes effect. She gets into a trance and floats back all the way, beyond the reach of people to try to catch her, and back to her, to her homeland, to her father's safety. Alveric, her husband, is distraught by this. He tries to cross the borders into Elfland, where he knows it to be, only that the King of Elfland moves the border away to where no one can get to it. Now, he, feeling hopeless, his son says, I don't know how it can be closed off because I hear the horns of Elfland. This gives the father, Alveric, some hope, so he puts on a small band of companions, and they go on a quest to find the borders of Elfland to cross and help save Lirazel. And this is going to take, it's going to take years of this journey just to find it, almost hopeless even. During that time, Orion, eventually becoming the Earl, but spends most of the time hunting, and one of the things as he was hunting, he finds a unicorn that has crossed the borders of Elfland through an unusual condition, and he hunts and kills it. And when he brings the unicorn back, the people of Elfland, and the Parliament in particular, 12 men, are now happy because with this unicorn here, that means that their lord Orion is the magic lord they were searching for at the beginning. They were hoping to have. But it's one of those cases where they get more than what they're bargaining for. See, with the unicorn, coming in later, trolls start, coming in from, and all that, and then later goblins, will-o-the-wisp, and all that sort of thing. Alveric still is searching for years to find a way for him to cross into Elfland. Lirazel is, despite the fact that she's in her father's protection, she is deeply saddened that she cannot be with her husband and son. And then, and I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to spoil the ending on how they resolve all this. Now, I enjoyed this story, but bear in mind that it's not a story where you go on a quest to defeat a dark lord and overcome those obstacles and win everything in the end. This is a story of getting more than what you bargained for, or be careful what you wish for. that sort of thing. It's a nice fairy tale, and Lord Dunsany is known for his poetic prose to help get immersed with that, something that's kind of lacking in a lot of fantasy these days. But that's what he was known for. His inspirations were definitely the Bible, myths, folklore, and stuff like that, and he wrote his fantasies like that. He was a modern fairy tale writer, and this is one of his most famous works. In fact, very influential, and a lot of people we like to read today may be inspired by. The introduction is done by Neil Gaiman about how much he praises this and how good this is. L. Sprague de Camp puts this on par with the Tolkien books. Catherine Kerr makes an endorsement on the back of this one. Del Rey is to be thanked for bringing these works back into print. No one can understand modern fantasy without understanding its roots, which I agree with that. And Lord Dunsany's work is immensely significant as well as enjoyable even today. Arthur C. Clarke. Yes, 2001's Arthur C. Clarke. I shall indeed be happy if this volume contributes to the rediscovery of one of the greatest writers of this century. William Butler Yeats will find that he has transfigured with beauty and common sights of the world. H.P. Lovecraft is a big fan of Lord Dunsany. In fact, before he was famous for his writing, he had his Lord Dunsany stories and Edgar Allan Poe stories, and then, before he developed his own voice and everything. Gary Gygax of Dungeons and Dragons creation and fame puts Lord Dunsany in his Appendix N, which is a list of books, inspirational stories that when give you an idea of what to inspire you and how to run your Dungeons and Dragons game. So, so this is one of those books. There's a nice simple fairy tale. It's not that long. This one's only 240 pages, and it's not a very small print and all that. And again, it does tell in flowery detail the world. You're set in the land of enchantment. If you're a fan of, say, The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Bagel, this should be in your library about that if you like that type of fantasy. So, and other such things. It's not dark or gritty. It does come to an ending, but I didn't want to get into that. But it's not like a grandeur. One of the things I did like about this is how magic came into the land of Earl. Often when I think of such events that happens, it's usually something triggers and a huge event, like a wave of magic or something like that, and the whole land changes all at once. The gradualness of this can, in some angles, can be viewed as someone, not, how should I put this? It's like one thing happens and then another thing happens, and you can see that they may not relate. It's sort of like, for instance, unicorns came in, that convinces the Parliament that Magicus came back. Then later the trolls came in, and then it's like one thing at a time, starts build up to where the people of Earl couldn't quite handle it. So I do like that as something, on how magic came into the world. But again, it's a nice little fairy tale. Be careful what you wish for, and you get more what you bargain for. So that's what. So this one, I think, if you're lovers of high fantasy and you want to go back to the roots of this, and you already have Tolkien and other things like that, you got to add Lord Dunsany in it, and this is a good one to put in there. The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.